listening is not a strength that they have. So again, it comes back to this idea of constant reinforcement, and more than anything, we need to act as a GPS for them. If you think about your GPS and you think about how your GPS operates, it helps people get to places and get to certain goals. Our job is to be that GPS. Once we help them identify what the organizational goals are, what we're trying to do, how it maps to their personal goals in their life, how it's going to advance their life, we need to set that map for them and provide that direction. And just like a GPS, if they're getting off track, we give that feedback. We coach them to get them back where they need to be, so that they can achieve that goal that's going to help the organization, it's going to help the retail store, it's going to help them in their personal life. But it's a different way to start thinking about some of these issues.
When you come here to this type of event and you have the subject managing millennials in the retail environment, working with millennials in a retail environment, whether you're here for insight on how do I bring millennials in, how do I work with millennials, or if you're here because you're trying to market to them and trying to get their dollars and their sales, get a new generation of customers. Regardless of your purpose for being here, you're beginning to see already a bit of a thread, a bit of a theme in what Adam and I are discussing. If this is the me generation, if this next generation is truly the me generation, and the research shows that that's not a horrible way to title them. If this is the me generation, whether you're recruiting them, or working with them, or trying to get them into your stores, if they're the me generation, everything that you do has got to be about them. It's purely a way in which we are going to see if we can turn our mind's eye around and examine what they want first and truly understand what they need first before we push whatever products or services or positions we have on them. The same thing applies when it comes to training. And again, I'm going to talk for a minute about training millennials, but even if you have no interest today in hiring and training millennials, the key theme and the key thread flows through. Regions Bank is a firm that Adam and I do a tremendous amount of business with. They're a great partner of ours. And their director of training for their retail banking division is Kim Robichaud, and Kim is an outstanding professional, always interested in getting better in what they do. And in working with Kim, we've found that at Regions, they do a tremendous job, because they're a big company, even at retail, to store level, they do a tremendous job of training new hires, young new hires, as soon as they come in the bank. They send them to Birmingham, Alabama, to the corporate office, and they love on them for 5 months. They treat them as good or better than their parents treated them for 5 months. Training, development, learning, lunches, kickball games, everything else you could think of that you and I would find distracting, they find engaging, to say the least. And for 6 months, Regions treats them this way. And then they send them to retail. They put them in a bank branch somewhere as a teller or a commercial lender or behind the desk. And there are no more kickball games. And there are no more lunches. And there's no more love. And they lose them. They stay for training. And Regions spend a lot of money training them. And then when they get to retail, it's over. They're gone. And they didn't leave because they don't like banking, and they didn't leave because they don't like Regions, and they didn't leave because they don't like the job. They left because the love is gone. There's some folks in this room who've left because the love is gone. Like that. And the reason they leave is because the attention is not there. They got all this attention. They got all this attention while they're being trained, and the attention's gone. The moral of this story of how I can train millennials for success, how I can train millennials for success, the answer to that question doesn't have anything to do with online webinars and 40-page training manuals and all these things that big companies can do. It's advantage small business. It's advantage family business. Your training is nothing more than an extension of attention. It's about spending time with hires once they've been onboarded. Once you've gone through initial training, here's how to do your job. Here's how to do your job. My generation, the Xers, we want to know how to do our job, how to make money doing it, and then get out of my way. We appreciate independence more than anything else from those who manage us. To us, training is a burden. To the new generation, training is a birthright. They expect it at the beginning, and they expect it to continue. But again, it's not necessarily about training as you see it, it's about attention. It's about mentoring. It's about working with and talking to and asking questions and the coaching that Adam talked about. It's about spending time with those young people in our stores and our businesses once we've got them. That black hole where you lose these hires, where you lose them after you get done training them or after the recruiting process is over. You can close that black hole and you can keep them by giving them attention. Now, Adam said it right. There are a few things that millennials just don't do well, as a rule, as a whole. These are brain gaps. They're not as organized as previous generations. They're not as detail-oriented as previous generations. They do not listen as well as previous generations. And they do not like independence. They don't like to be out on a floor, out on a phone, on their own. So when I'm picking things to give them attention about, I choose those things that they're naturally weak at. It may be a mentoring conversation with an older person on the floor. It may be a conversation with a manager. It may be some on-the-job type, consistent on-the-job type training. Working with these individuals about their brain gaps and their weaknesses. But I'll tell you this, while you're training the brain gaps, while you're working on their weaknesses, don't hide them away because they've got strengths that can help you now. While you're training the brain gaps, training the weaknesses, recognize the strengths. These guys are so much more creative than we were. They solve problems better than we solved problems. They're innovative. They work better as a team. They have these great strengths. So while you're training them, while you're giving them that attention, if you'll also recognize the strengths, that's where you can continue to keep them motivated, keep them inspired, and reward them in the way in which you work with them.